Okay, so usually in February, that's my month for travel. I usually take a road trip or two, we shoot a ton of content for the coming year, and it's something that I look forward to all year, and it's a great escape in the winter. But this year, that's not happening. I'm here in Kentucky at my house, and I thought, well, if I can't create travel content, which is half the brand, I'll tap into the other half, the half that I really, really love, and that's our slow living stuff. So I'm gonna do this series of videos here at the farmhouse, which is on my family's farm. And we've been here on this farm since the 1790s, 1780s, and this house was built by my great-great-grandparents, and it's very, very special to me. And I wanted to take you inside, and we're gonna do some videos. We're also going to appreciate this light fixture that's above me. I'm very slowly remodeling the house. I got a new floor in January. This month I'm getting a new sink and a new faucet, and it's gonna be great. But this light fixture, that's a March project. So it's gonna be here for several of these videos, and I'm sorry. But hey, it's been here since I was a kid. I kinda like it. For that nostalgia, back when this used to be all paneling and yellow Formica and yellow appliances, and it screamed, this is the 80s, even though it's the 90s. But, so the idea is that I am 31, I grew up here on this farm. We are about a mile outside of a town of 300. My family's been here since before the town started, since before Kentucky was a state, just barely after America became a country. So we've been here a while, and I absolutely love this place. I lived in New York for the last 3 years. I split my time between here and there, but I inherited this house back last summer, and I've known since I was 4 that I would get it, and I really, really love it. But growing up here, I was raised by my parents, of course, but my great aunt lived next door, my grandparents lived here, and I was surrounded by all of the people that went to my little white church and all of the extended family that grew up and fraternized here in Walton's Creek. That's the name of the little creek. That's actually a glorified ditch that runs through the middle of the farm. Somebody asked this morning what it was named after. The land surveyor who surveyed this area for Washington. They named the community after him and the creek, and here we are. But with all of that stuff, I learned a very different way of life. I learned a very, very southern, country, rural, bucolic, pastoral way of life. And I've learned as I've gotten older and I've lived away or in college or whatever, that a lot of my friends and the people that I could come across don't know those traditional ways, and to them how I was raised was very much a novelty. Growing up slow was just normal for us. The garden is out the window. This kitchen is where I came every Saturday. I had a playroom upstairs. I grew up 2 houses down, and I worked on the farm, and I loved it. And I absolutely wouldn't trade it for anything. I certainly do love the big cities, but this rural life is one that I love. With that, I learned how to cook at a very, very early age, and I learned how to cook in a very southern way. Butter, not oleo, that is oil, that is nasty. We use real butter. We know how to churn our butter, but we don't, because that's a different century. But we're gonna dive in, and we're gonna do some videos that are some of my very favorite foods that I've learned here in my town, on the farm, just growing up in small town America. My favorite one, this is my absolute favorite thing to make, is bread pudding. So we're gonna start with that one. When this was my great grandmother's kitchen, she was known for her bread pudding. There were a lot of people that worked on our farm. The farm was very, very big for the day, for the early 1900s. And a lot of the people in the community worked here. And she would make biscuits for breakfast for everybody. My grandfather had 4 sisters that all grew up here, plus everybody that worked on the farm. So she'd make biscuits every day. And then whatever was left over, she would typically make a bread pudding out of. And sometimes that was chocolate bread pudding, which isn't something I like. I like a more traditional one. And you can totally make chocolate. I'll probably make the recipe at some point because nostalgia, well, nostalgia. She died in the 50s. I never knew her. But for family's sake. But we're gonna start with this classic one. And I'm gonna try not to move my hand so much because, my God, this is rough. Anyways, we're gonna start with this loaf of bread. The other morning at breakfast, I asked one of the ladies who used to make bread for the farmer's market if I could beg her to make me sourdough because I love sourdough and I was in the mood for bread pudding. So she did. Didn't take too much begging, but one loaf is already gone. Now this one's a few days old, so it is perfect for bread pudding. You never want to use too fresh a bread because it's too airy and soft, and it'll just soak up everything and you'll get a dense, mushy mess. So we're gonna start by cutting this into cubes, like 1-inch cubes. And if you're really smart and you plan ahead, you can leave these out overnight to kind of stiffen up even more, because we're gonna add a lot of liquid to it and that's gonna soften them. So I'm gonna pause this. I'm gonna cut all of this up. I'm gonna use this Cutco knife that they gave me years ago and I just found it and I love it. Another American-made brand. So if you're ever hunting for knives, I would recommend Cutco. But I'm gonna cut these up and we'll come back. Okay, so we're back. It's all cut up, it's in cubes, like 1 inch. You can use really, truly any type of bread with this. I'm picky because I grew up with really good sourdough made by a neighbor, which we'll touch on at a different time. So I really like it with sourdough. You can do it with biscuits. I don't love that, but that's just a personal preference. We of course like it here on the farm. I have made it with donuts. That is very, very rich. I think that's like a Paula Deen recipe, so you know it's not healthy. I would not recommend that, but if you're really going full Southern, you might as well. You can use Iron Kid bread, you can use bunny bread, you can use that, but like with French toast, go for the finer things in life. Go for a ciabatta, go for a sourdough, any sort of bread that is a little bit airy. Don't go with something super dense because it's gonna be, you're just gonna get something that's not fun. If you don't know what bread pudding bread pudding is, it's a very Southern staple. It is something that you can do with old bread versus croutons or something like that. It is basically turning French toast into a dessert. It's not healthy. There's nothing remotely healthy about this, but as a Southerner who has given up sweet tea because I don't want to drink my carbs, I will sometimes splurge and have this. Anyways, we've got this cube. So next we're gonna make the sauce, which we're then gonna soak that in. So we're going to do 2 cups of milk. This is half and half because I really go overboard. You can use whole milk. I wouldn't recommend anything less. I definitely wouldn't recommend skim milk. And this is one of those that you kind of need to use the dairy. That oat milk, all of that is super healthy, but this is one of those staples that if you're gonna do it right, you're gonna do it at all. If you don't do it wrong, just do it the real way. Anyways, so you've got milk, you've got 1 cup of sugar. I did a mix. I did a ratio of about 3/4 of a cup to 1/4 of a cup of brown sugar to white sugar because I like the caramely flavor of the brown sugar. You can totally just do white sugar. You can even just do brown sugar, but I find the mix to be better. Then we're gonna add 3 eggs. So a lot of recipes call for 2, but I like mine to be a little thicker. But this is the most important part of this entire dish. Whisk these eggs in with all of this mixture. My last bread pudding basically came out with a crouton-filled quiche. No one complained, they liked it, but it had chunks of eggs in it. And I don't like my French toast to have chunks of eggs in it. And I don't like this to have eggs in it. Okay, so next we're gonna go to a pinch of salt, because most every Southern dish that is a dessert has salt in it. I would usually use kosher salt, but as I'm pinching this, I'm realizing it's table salt. Invest in kosher salt. It's flakier, it's better, it has a better flavor, than standard table salt. That is something I've learned, not on the farm, but in my many, many trips to Whole Foods, which we don't have here, and sometimes that makes me sad. But we have the Dollar General, and that is great. And they have the biggest fashion, they don't have fashion at all. They have the biggest party supplies section in the county. Anyways, tablespoon of vanilla. This is a lot of vanilla. I really like it. I really like a warm feeling with my bread pudding. I'm a Baptist, so I don't put bourbon in this. But if you're not a Baptist, substitute this for bourbon and thank me later. So we've got our vanilla or bourbon, whichever. And then we are going to do spices. I made a pumpkin pie last week. I had pumpkin soup last week. I like those flavors all year long. I love apple pie all year. So I go heavy with the cinnamon, the nutmeg, and the ginger. I also keep pumpkin spice all year long. This is by a friend of mine, so I'm gonna push this. Otherwise, I would use the pumpkin spice mix from the dollar store. That's like $1. But I'm gonna do whatever size this is. This is really to your own discretion. I love these spoons that are made by one of our local potters. So I'm going really heavy. This is really strong. It makes me happy. It's okay. And then we're going to add our butter. This is 2 to 3 tablespoons of melted butter. I go 3 because I'm Southern. If you're a Yankee, you can go with 2. And you'll be just fine. But I melted it. I should have just softened it. It's not really going to make a big difference. But I don't have my microwave plugged in. So I just went ahead and melted it all the way. And I think that's it. It is. So we're going to whisk this. And like I said, this is really, really important. And while I whisk it, I'm going to tell you about my shirt. I like this shirt, and it's super fitting for today's food because it's Southern and bless your heart. Did you know, if you're a Southerner, you know this. Did you know that bless your heart has 2 meanings? It truly does mean bless your heart if we like you and we feel sorry for you, and we do want to extend our sympathy and our prayers. But the other meaning means we don't like you. And there's a nuance to that in the South you learn. And the easiest way to offend a Yankee is by saying bless your heart, and they don't understand the nuance. So I have learned that the hard way many, many times. And this was just one of those things, one of those shirts that I wanted to make. I don't know, it reminds me of like To Kill a Mockingbird or kind of those Southern staples, the Eudora Welties. It was like, oh, I love this saying, but I love it for kind of the reasons of, do people really know what I mean or what I don't mean? And I think it's just fun, it's sassy. It's not like I wear this that often, but hey, you can get it on our website. Anyways, back to this. This is pretty well mixed, so we've got it mixed. This bowl is by Farmhouse Pottery in Vermont. I love their stuff. I love this bowl. And then we've got a baking sheet. This is also by Farmhouse. This is Farmhouse Pottery. This is a fluted baking sheet. That's self-explanatory. But anyways, I use this for my bread pudding. It's like 9 inches. You can totally use a 13 by 9. You can use just about any baking dish you want. And you can as you make more of these, you'll get a feel for how much bread is going to make how much stuff. And this is where there's going to be a huge variation. Some people will soak this in the bowl. They'll soak the bread in the bowl. Some people will put the bread in here and just pour that on top. I don't really know what I do. I'm just hit or miss. But because this egg is not mixing as well, I should have beat it before I put it in here. I should have whisked it in just the bowl, but I didn't. So I'm gonna go ahead and soak half of these in here and then put half on the bottom so that the really soggy mixture is on top. I think I've said this, but make sure you pre-spray this with Pam or grease it or butter or whatever you want to do. So we're gonna do that. And while I do that, I'm gonna tell you that the oven should be at 350, and you are going to bake these for 30 to 45 minutes. You'll know when it's set because it will like when a custard pie, it just sets and you just know, oh, it's thick. That's it, and the bread will start to brown. You'll see that it just, if you can see any of the egg, you'll see that the egg is firm, and when you shake it, it will jiggle but not like bounce. I wish I knew more technical terms for it, but hey, I'm lucky I even have a recipe for this, because if you know us down here, we typically don't have recipes for anything we cook. So it just kind of ends up being a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and my grandmother made it this way and my aunt made it one way, and you just have to meet somewhere in the middle, and why didn't you know it when you were born? That's basically it. Because every person at the Baptist potluck is gonna have almost the same dish, but it's gonna be a different variation of the same recipe. And one of the recipes I'm making later today, that I'll share next week, is going to be straight out of one of those small town Baptist cookbooks that I love. I just think they're the coolest thing. So anyways, here is this. You can see that it is soggy, but not soupy. There is enough of the liquid down in the bottom to be good. My hands are really gross, so I'm gonna wipe those. And then we're gonna do one more thing. We are going to add a little bit of sugar to the top. This is one of our newer products on the website. It is flavored sugar. So if you can see, this is vanilla. And as I've already said, I like the hardiness of vanilla. It is very cold. It's like 20 degrees outside. It's cloudy. It's probably gonna snow. If you're in the Northeast, you are currently being snowed in. So let's go heavy on the vanilla because we can. So I'm just gonna take a spoonful of this and put it over. And you can of course get this on our website. That's just gonna add a little bit of flavor. And you can also add raisins to this. I am not a raisin person, but raisins are pretty much a staple in a lot of bread pudding. If you've ever been to the restaurant Grandy's, which I don't actually know if they have anywhere outside of Kentucky, that their biscuits always have raisins in them, and their cinnamon rolls always have raisins in them, and it's kind of similar to that. I skip it because I don't like raisins, but you can also add nuts. Pecans would be great in this. Hickory nuts, if you know what those are, they would be great in this as well. So I'm gonna bake this 350 for 30 to 45 minutes, and then we are going to make a super simple butterscotch and whipped cream sauce to go on top of this. So, see you in a minute. Okay, so it's out of the oven. I made the whipped cream because it didn't really make sense to make it over there, and it would be loud, but whatever. This is the bread pudding. It should have had more. I used a little bit too much bread, so it looks a little bit about like croutons on top, but it's gonna be great. I melted butterscotch, and I drizzled that over the top, but I also, when I was making my whipped cream, which you can see here, I added butterscotch to it. So it's got a great light flavor, and then you're gonna have the heaviness with that. So we're gonna finish this because I'm hungry because my lunch wasn't enough. And so we're gonna scoop it out, put it on a plate, because you know, it's cute like that. Whipped cream. And that's it, that's done. A Southern staple that I hope you love as much as I do. It's not healthy, but that's not the goal. See ya.